folks, it's the Missing and Fly here, hope you're well. Now it's another of those important days for me, because it's exactly a year ago that I bought the Ducati Panigale. Well, a year ago since I had it delivered anyway. And I've absolutely loved the bike over this first year of ownership. So this video is all going to be about what it's like to own the 899 Panigale, what I've done on it this year, what it cost me to buy, what extras I've added, and what the overall cost of ownership and experience has been. So stick around, stay tuned, and I'll tell you all that stuff. Let's go back to the man cave.
So welcome back to the man cave. So here she is then in all her loveliness and glory. I think she just looks an amazing bike, and I still think to this day that the Panigale is the best looking bike ever made, but there we go, that's just a personal opinion. So the 899 then, it was really only manufactured for about a year or so over the sort of model year 2015, 2016, over that sort of changeover period, because it was replaced by the 959. The 959 being the version of this that's Euro 4 compliant. Now, the 959 is better than this in a number of ways, technically, in that it's, in particular, it's got a slipper clutch that this hasn't got. But it's also not so nice as this in a number of ways, in that it's got that hideous side-mounted exhaust, in fact, on the other side. But I just couldn't live with that. So I was lucky to find this one. This was the last brand new 899 that I could find in the country when I got this. So I was very, very pleased to get this. There are a few other subtle changes between this and the 959. This is actually a little bit lighter, particularly with the termies, than the 959. It's also louder, which I quite like in a silly sort of way. It's got a slightly different design fairing. This is the fairing which is on the original 1199 Panigale. The 959 has the more modern looking fairing that comes off the 1299. Following all this? But that's a minor change, no big deal for me. So I'm very happy to have the 899 that was only around for a year or so, because I think in the future this maybe will become a future classic. Anyway, that's by the by. All this Italian loveliness comes at a cost. So how much did this bike cost me, together with all the accessories that I bought? Okay, so as you can imagine, I kept copious notes on the cost that I spent on this bike. So in terms of the bike, brand new with the options that I specified at the time of purchase. So this cost me £14,746.68 when I bought it. That included the Termi cans, the anodised brake reservoirs, which I love. I also had a tracker fitted and supplied. I had the Ducati performance indicators put on the back, together with the carbon tail tidy, the carbon tank pad, and the passenger seat cover cowl arrangement here, which I just think tidies it up. I'm never going to take something on the back of this bike, so I think that was a good purchase. So that lot together, as I say, £14,746. And then since then, I've added a number of accessories as follows. So the carbon dash cover, got that from Carbon Fibre Fever. That's an eBay shop. Great, check them out. That was £45. The carbon shock cover down here, that was £50. Again, all from Carbon Fibre Fever, these carbon items. The carbon heel plates down here, they were £50. The carbon hugger, that was £105. The carbon exhaust guard, that was £125, but I had to have that fitted professionally because you have to take the whole subframe off to do that properly, so more on that later. Of course, the Tony James design paint protection kit, the film that stops the, because these don't come with the top clear coat lacquer on these, so I had to get some protection on the paint. So the Tony James paint protection kit, £200, money well spent. The levers, they're just eBay special, £75 for those. Throttle spacer kit, which I talked about recently, you can't see it, it's obviously underneath the throttle there. I've done a video on that, how to fit it and what it does, £31. The battery charger fly lead down here, because I found that particularly with the tracker fitted, it does if you leave it sitting for 5 days or more, it will just drain the battery flat. So I keep her on trickle charge on that. That cost me £19.88. I bought various spare fairing bolts for this. They were £5.12, the black ones, just because I found that one or two of them were working loose initially and I lost a couple. So I had to just put some in with some thread lock just to make sure I don't lose those. That's £5.12. And then I bought the service manual on CD from eBay. That was £3.99. So add that to the purchase cost. If you want to get a bike of this spec, brand new, if indeed you can do such a thing, which you can't because they don't make them anymore, this would be £15,456.67. So in other words, 15.5 grand for a bike of this spec. So this being you know, an 899, a mid-size sports bike, that's quite a lot of money, I guess, because you can buy a litre bike, you know, an R1 or whatever for that sort of price. But for me, it was about Ducati ownership and particularly about the Panigale. I just love the looks of the thing. And also the 899 had a great write-up about being a real world bike. So that's why I was happy, well, happy-ish, to spend that sort of money on this bike. Okay, so what about running costs then? Okay, so once again, as you'd expect, I kept copious notes on running costs this year, and they were as follows. Tax for this bike, £7.23 a month, or £86.76 per annum. Insurance, difficult for me to work that out because it's on a multi-bike policy. Well, it's on a 2-bike policy, together with my street triple, but I pay £268.51 in total for that, so if you just halve it, £134.25 for insurance. That's probably under doing it, because the street triple is no doubt cheaper to insure than that. The tracker subscription, £99 for the year. The first service, the 600 miler, that included the fitting of the heat shield. I mentioned that that was quite an involved job, together with a new front tyre, because mysteriously when I took it to the dealers and left it, apparently it had a puncture, so I had to replace the tyre, which was a bit of a shocker. So their first service at 600 miles, plus the tyre, plus fitting of the heat shield at the back, £527.21 for the first service, which was pretty salty, I thought. Track day insurance, I did a couple of track days and I insured it for one of those days. That cost me £200.23 for the track day insurance. So the total annual running costs for the bike this year, excluding depreciation, because that only comes into effect when you actually sell it, and I don't intend selling this at any point unless I have to, and excluding petrol, was £1,047.45. So quite an expensive bike to run, I think. When you compare that to, it was about £700 on my BMW GS when I recently worked that out, and on the Honda that was 350 quid for the year. So yeah, an expensive bike to run for the year. So my first year of ownership with the Panigale, I've had great fun on her actually. It's been mostly local blats around the lanes. I've done a total of 2,354 miles on her, which may not sound like much, but I have got 3 other bikes and a couple of cars. So if you're just doing local stuff, you know, it mounts up. I think the longest journey I did was when I went up to Donington for the track day. That was 130 miles one way, so 260 round trip. So that was a good couple of hour ride. And actually, that was much better than I thought. The bike was very comfortable on the run, and in some ways, I almost enjoyed the ride up there as much as I did the track day, which was incredible. So that was the longest run, and yeah, as I say, local stuff, but really have enjoyed the bike much more than I anticipated. So my first year of ownership with the Panigale hasn't been entirely trouble-free. The biggest issue I had, I think, was with the OEM chain that went rusty after the first 2 weeks, which was incredible. Even though I cleaned it, oiled it, even in that period, it still just went rusty at the drop of hat. Incredible. So after a bit of negotiation with the local Ducati dealer, they actually agreed to replace that chain with a DID gold chain under warranty, which was very kind of them. Had no issues with that chain since, so that's fine. So that was a bit rubbish, but since fixed. And then the only other problem I've had is with the battery going flat. I think due to the tracker. I had the same issue on the GS, so I had to fit that battery fly lead, and I tend to keep her topped up with a trickle charger if I know I'm going to leave her for more than 3 or 4 days, say. So that's the only other sort of working problem. I guess the other thing that has surprised me slightly was the cost of ownership, but I only found that out just now and I worked out the figures. Okay, other than that, what else has surprised me about the ownership of the bike? So I'm glad to say there hasn't really been any surprises with the Panigale. It's absolutely lived up and exceeded my expectations in that it's actually much more comfortable than I thought it was going to be. My main worry when I bought this, which is my first sports bike, was that my back and my bones were going to really punish me as a result of having it. But in fact, that's not true. After a week of riding it, my bones kind of got used to it, and now when I jump on it, it just feels as comfortable as any of my other bikes. So that just hasn't been an issue. That's been a really pleasant surprise. So so great in that respect. And I suppose the only other surprise was that cost of ownership bit. But next year, I mean, I had the tyre and the fitting of the heat shield and so on, so that won't happen next year. So it'll be interesting to see next year how the cost of ownership differs compared to year 1.
Okay, so there we have it. That's my 1 year long-term ownership review of the Ducati 899 Panigale. I guess the question is, do I like it? Would I recommend others to buy one? And the answer is an emphatic yes. I absolutely love the machine. Every time I ride it, it's an occasion. It makes me feel good inside to be on the Ducati. Now, my other bikes quite have that effect. So I fully anticipate doing a 2-year ownership review this time next year. And I look forward to speaking to you then. Until then, this has been the Mr. Fly. Cheerio.